Let's start from the beginning, when you were born.
Oh, are you recording? So I was adopted when I was, I think 3 months or something months, it's kind of, I haven't really asked in a while. But the family that I have is pretty much the only family that I've known because I was a baby when they adopted me. But before that, I was in a foster family for a few months. Like I said, I was a baby, but I do still have contact with them. And aside from that, I've always been a very family-oriented person. So, like your family, my best friend's family becomes my own family. I'm very involved in your family, I think. So that's like another aspect there. And then obviously my extended family, I'm also very close to, just because I love people.
So your family also adopted your other 2 siblings.
Yes. They were also adopted as babies. We were all adopted as babies from different families, from different areas. Like, I think we were all adopted before one, though. My sister was adopted first, and then me, and then my brother. He has Cornelius de Lange syndrome. So it's not like a Down syndrome or anything like that. Pretty much, there are some more severe cases of it than what he has. Like, you can have limbs that aren't fully formed, so like you might not have a hand or like an arm or something like that. So there's definitely could be worse. For him, it's just he does have some smaller features, like he has small hands, small feet, but it's not abnormal. It doesn't look abnormal on him. For him, it's more in the mental capacity. Like, he might seem to act in a younger age. Right now he's 19, but he's kind of like 15, 16. Yeah. So in school it was kind of hard for him to keep up with other people. He does have some behavioral issues and a lot of medical issues. Nothing like severely pressing or anything like that. We would go to conferences and stuff and kind of learn about what he had and issues such as that. But yeah, I was exposed to a lot of mental issues and a lot of thought processing, I think, and emotional processing, just because he processed in a different way than most of us do. So in the sense that something small might seem huge to him, like my mom going to work. It's a huge deal. He was always so upset. And for me, it was more like, oh, whatever. She's going to be back. Most of us are like, oh, she'll be back later.
But for him,
it was like the end of the world. It was very interesting because it's something that was, how do you say it? It was coming for a while. Like, we all saw it coming. It needed to happen. So finally went, and I only wanted to be tested for anxiety because, that was what was affecting my life the most at that point. I was very anxious to do small things like drive. Drive was the biggest one. I love driving, but all of a sudden it was just too much for me to handle. I was like taking back roads and stuff, going super so scared. And then I had very bad social anxiety in the sense that I could be walking and be like, oh gosh, everyone's staring at me. Oh my gosh, I'm walking weird. Like, what if they're like, oh, who is this girl? Why is she walking? Just stupid stuff. So she hands me this form, just a questionnaire, says anxiety. Then she hands me another one for depression. Okay, so I, stare at the paper. I'm trying to be very smart about my answers. What I was saying is that I didn't want to be sent away. So I did get diagnosed with both. So I'm now medicated, which has been good. It has been good. But yeah, it was very interesting just because my family and, my religious family also, they were kind of weird about being medicated for mental health. Not necessarily only being medicated for it, but talking about it in general. And actually believing that those feelings were real, that mental illness is real, Some people believe you should just pray it away. Some people believe that you're just being dramatic and that everyone deals with it and they get over it, so you should too, type deal. Unexpectedly, my siblings were diagnosed about a year or 2 before me, but they expressed their mental health in a way that was like anger, like blowing up, having I don't know, like it was every day, like you could see their anger issues type thing. So they were it was boiled down to being anxiety, so they were diagnosed for it. For me, it was not necessarily me having attitude issues or anything like that. Like, I was irritable, I was sad, I was depressed, I didn't talk a lot, did not enjoy talking to people that I don't know. So it affected me in a different way. So for that, it was more so something that I should hide, I guess. Like, I was just having a bad time, like, all the time. And I didn't want to tell people that, because then they would be like, oh, well, you just need to get over it. Or, you know, you're fine, you're just being dramatic, you just want attention. That also comes with being a middle child. After them two got diagnosed, I didn't want to be like, oh, me too, you know. So it was a little different for me. I didn't want people to attribute it to me wanting attention or me being dramatic. The biggest change that I've seen is definitely my social anxiety. I'm a lot more outgoing, I think, which is nice. I like that. Make more friends. I make friends. Because I talk more. I'm not as nervous as what people think about me. Like, I can walk through a crowded area and not be like, oh my gosh, they're staring at me, I'm walking weird or something. You know, sometimes I still do have those days, but definitely a lot better. Like, I don't have to think as much. So it's easier for me to speak out and make friends, and I talk in class, I answer questions, you know, I even joke in front of people. Yeah. I think it's a generational thing as well. You know, there's those stigmas that come from culture, you know, like you said, being an African American woman, or especially an African American man. Growing up, you're not supposed to show your emotions at all. It's viewed as weakness, or, you know, it's not accepted. It's not, especially as a man. You're meant to be strong and confident, you're bringing in all the money, you're not supposed to have emotions. So for a man to come out, an African American man to come out and be like, hey, something's wrong, like, I'm sad all the time, that would not be accepted in a lot of families, even still today. And it was also very generational. Like, our parents, especially their parents, you know, you would hear about people being sad, but it was never like, oh, I'm depressed.
And it's that line that's always used of what you have to be sad about. Right.
That's a big one. And then someone asked me, or someone told me once when I was talking about being diagnosed, that anxiety and depression did not exist when they were kids. And I thought that was kind of crazy, because it's existed forever. But it didn't exist, and they didn't talk about it. It doesn't look one certain way, and you shouldn't be ashamed to get diagnosed, get medicated, go to therapy. Like, that's not, you know, that's what this is for. But there's the flip side of that people are now using it for clout, or like for attention. They're romanticizing it. That's one big thing. And even my classes now, it's like, do not romanticize these disorders. Do not self-diagnose, because we're learning about these things, and they don't want you to go and be like, oh, I had those symptoms, like, there's something wrong with me, like, I am bipolar because I feel this way one day and this way the next. But that's human life. You're gonna feel differently depending on the situation, depending on the day, depending on what's going on. So definitely talk about it, talk about your issues, talk about your mental health, but romanticizing it, glorifying it on social media, throwing it out everywhere for everyone to know, let's not make it a trend. It was a trend at that point. It was all over my For You page on TikTok. It was everywhere. It's not a trend. It's very serious. So let's not do that. It could look differently for everyone. You know, every person handles their stuff differently. Maybe they were doing it to gain support, to have someone to talk to. Like, I'm sure there are certain people that talk about it on social media that just want to raise awareness, want to get, you know, support. But there's definitely a large group of people that are doing it for the trend. So, okay, right now, I think I should address this. Right now, my major is actually criminal justice, and my minor is psychology. And that's also kind of because when I graduated high school, a lot of people were going into psychology just because it seemed easy, or it seemed like a cool thing. I don't know. But it is actually kind of hard to get a degree just from a psychology bachelor's. Can't do a lot with that. And I am very interested in the offender population and the way their brains work, the way they process things, as well as just, you know, law enforcement. It's kind of interesting, especially with all the mental health that's attributed to that, you know, being a police officer, and what you experience every day. And then also, you know, how that affects the people that you may interact with as a police officer, the people that you might arrest, you know. So all of that went into deciding to be criminal justice and psychology. But now, as I'm graduating, I am going to go into a graduate program that is clinical mental health counseling, because eventually I want to be an correctional counselor, so the people that will lead the group therapies, individual therapies within a jail or a prison. But it's not only that, it can also be those who are being released on parole, or on probation. But yeah, I'm very interested in the way criminal minds work, you know, why they did what they did, how they're different than we are. You know, most people wouldn't just go out and, you know, murder somebody. That's an extreme example. But, you know, there has to be something there. Their brain works differently. They grew up differently. They process things differently, you know. So that's very interesting to me. I'm excited to kind of get into that after graduating from clinical mental health. But also with that, you know, mental health is a wide opportunity. There's a lot of jobs in that field. So you could work with substance abusers, for example. You could work with depressed teens. You could work with women who have been abused in relationships, you know, and have to take care of their kids and whatnot. You can work in a school with couples, anything. So, yeah, very excited.